Hi, everybody. Welcome to TalentED. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Skanson, and this is TalentED, the podcast that illuminates the world of talent and education. Today, we embark on a musical journey with a remarkable guest. I'm so excited for this. There's a ball of energy here. Debbie Clement, a true maestro in the realms of music, education, and literature. And here's what I want to say. Again, welcome. Debbie's here today. She's graced the world with over 2 decades of musical genius, having composed and recorded over 100 original songs that have delighted children's hearts and minds. But there's more. There's more to Debbie's story. She's not just a musician, she's a visionary artist who has seamlessly woven her melodies into the fabric of children's literature. And I can attest to this. My own kids love the books. They love them. She's got an infectious humor, boundless energy. With all of that, welcome, Debbie. Tell us where you're at today. Tell us a little bit more about your journey before we get going here today.
Okay, well, I think you really laid the foundation, Dr. Eric, and I'm so grateful to be here and to meet those of you out there on the other side of the screen. I'm standing in my home in Florida today. We're fortunate enough to be living the life, and we have 2 homes. So in the winter, we're down here in the palm trees, and in the summer, we take off and we're in northern Wisconsin amid the birch trees and all kinds of beautiful maples in our own yard. And yes, so this has been a wonderful journey of children, young children, but now they're kind of getting older. Not only the children that I see when I'm out, but my material. I've learned how to keep things simple. And I think that's my favorite feedback from teachers when they say, well, I'm not really musical, but Debbie, your things are so simple. And I can picture using your book for X, Y, or Z. And then they do that and they include some sign language, and the kids are moving and excited and responding to the beat. And all of a sudden, that teacher is elevated in their own sense of professional use with the children. And they see what a difference the arts can make. And that's really, if I want to hang a banner somewhere, she's the one that brought the arts. She was the steam that came into the classroom and took our math concepts and patterns, and she did that through music. And wow, how the kids responded through simple choreography with dances. So all of my work, I really try to bring from the brain research as to how we really learn things, and to go back and repeat, and like I say, build patterns and scaffold within us all.
It is a fully immersive experience. I imagine if people get to work with you in both song and visual stimulation, movement, like you get it all.
Well, that's that. I think I really do differentiate myself. I mean, there's some great music people out there, and there's no doubt incredible visual people, and somebody that's all about, professional dance. And I just give myself permission to do a little bit of all of it. And so I'm standing here in front of a painting I made. So when the world went to, having Zoom, and I wasn't in classrooms, I thought, I want to have a happy backdrop. I know, I'll paint one. So just giving myself permission to do that, to literally back, in the previous century, when our phones were attached to the wall, and I got in the yellow pages because I had an idea. I always tell the kids, have an idea and write it down. And then I got in the yellow pages because I had an idea that I wanted to turn into a song. And I called the first letter A recording studio in Columbus, Ohio. And then I ended up working there with them about 25 years to record over 100 songs. Wow. So, and working with those professionals for whom it was a life passion, we got to hire brilliant instrumentalist. So I'd have a professor from Ohio State bring his trombone and then just give him permission. You are the jazz specialist. This is a little song about a pelican. What does a trombone do for that? And give him the full range. So I've gotten to work with some brilliantly talented professional musicians. And I think that's what makes it, there's kids music that's kind of like fingernails on the chalkboard, and you can maybe listen to that once because the teaching piece of it is important, but my instrumentation is something that I receive feedback from parents at stoplights. We're listening to that CD for the umpteenth time, and they'll tell me, that it's the professional arrangement behind it that really makes it a family song that we can sing, after supper, that sort of thing. So I'm really proud of that.
Well, for coming from somebody who has 5 kids, we've been through multiple albums, CDs. You are correct. There are some that we can all enjoy, and there's some that we just want to take out back and be done with it. So I do appreciate that acknowledging that sometimes it's fun to have something that the whole family can listen to.
Right.
Okay, we got it.
Okay.
Debbie, I want to get into this thing with your music a little bit more. So your journey from music to writing children's books is a fascinating journey. Can you walk through some of the pivotal moments that led you to doing this?
And I did my homework because I thought, what if he asked me, how old is that first book? So I know the answer as of about 7 minutes ago. So when I come out to the schools, and again, I think something that differentiates me. So I've written these songs, but then I've turned 4 of them. I keep them in polka dots because I do love my polka dots. So when I come to the school, sometimes I'm so fortunate, to do staff development, which of course I love. The more teachers we can get excited about the arts and singing and moving, and then the piece that is so exciting is my actual degree is in graphic design.
Oh,
and
nice.
So 1,000,000 years ago in a previous century, I had a professor who said, Debbie, that we were assigned to make a poster. And he said, that poster looks to me like it could be in a children's picture book. Maybe that's something on down your future. So I only waited about 20 years from when he said that. But it was literally planted in my head. And so a very simple song that I wrote that was on my first cassette tape. Yes, that's how old this woman is. Okay, so it was on my first cassette tape, and it's called You're Wonderful. And it was a very simple, again, it's repetitive. There's 6 words and 6 different verses. And I was teaching it, and a librarian came and said, Debbie, those words are so affirming. I do a weekly program with unwed mothers and their infant children. And they come to the library, and it's my job to help these young teenage mommies learn how to interact with their little baby, toddler, whoever it might be. And she said, for some of these moms, they've never heard anyone say to them, I think you're wonderful. And so the song says that, I think you're wonderful. Well, then she's the very person who said, this would really be gorgeous in sign language. So then I learned the 6 signs for wonderful, and marvelous is the very same sign, and then beautiful, and began to teach that to teachers as I was out and about. And then teachers would say to me, Debbie, I can't remember the sign language. Don't you have that on a chart somewhere? And somebody else would say, we're going to perform that at our end of the year kindergarten graduation. And I really wish I had an instrumental so that we could sing it. Do you have the instrumental? And then somebody else, would ask for, I need the music notation. Our music teacher is going to play it on the piano, but I don't. Well, there was no music, written out. Everything that I did at the studio, these guys could just all listen by ear, and it's hard to believe that, but true story. So there was no music notation. So then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, she needs a sign language, and they want the instrumental. This person needs an arrangement, and this is starting to be a lot of stuff. How do you keep a lot of stuff together? You put them into a book. And then I really agonized. I'm like, okay, Deb, you have a graphic design degree. You ought to be able to do this yourself. And I thought, it's a conversation in my mind between a teacher and a child, or the teacher in the class. I think you're wonderful. I think you're marvelous. And I thought, if I draw a boy, the girls are not going to think this has anything to do with them. And if I draw this racial, ethnic type of a child, everybody else is going to feel, well, that's a song that you sing to that type of a child. And so then I was at an art gallery where we now have a home, but back over 20 years ago, I walked into this art gallery and there was a contemporary quilt exhibit. And it was just big, bold colors and splashy, just all the polka dots together. And I thought, I have a sewing machine. How hard would it be to sew fabric for the illustration? So, let me find you my favorite one here at the ending. And so that's what I did. It turns out that if you make 16 small quilts with your sewing machine, it turns into a 32-page book. And so this was back before self-publishing was kind of a thing. You don't have to go too many steps into Googling to figure that out. Back then, like I say, it's 19 years old today. It was really a process to find somebody that could publish it. And I had all the quilts done, and we did all kind of research in other countries, Southeast Asia. And then my husband toured a printing plant up in Michigan. And I was all excited. It's going to be a book. It's going to be a book. And they couldn't bind over 10 inches. And this is a 12-inch format. So then it was back to the drawing board. But in the end, we persevered and we found a place out near St. Louis. And they're a yearbook company. So if you think 20 years ago, who prints in a small run that can do a professional level of printing? It's a yearbook company. Yearbooks. So that's how it got done. And from that minute to having the books on our front porch was about a month. So we literally spent, I don't know how many months calling the world to find out that here was a company that was relatively close by that could have them done. And so in the back of the book is the recording. So the CD's back there in my first book with both the sung version and the instrumental. And then there's a page for the music notation. And then the person that wanted the sign language chart, the sign languages in the back of the book and how you do those signs. And then also for the reading specialist, I wanted to enlarge those affirming words. So those are in the back of the book. And I don't know, we probably started with 1,000 would be my guess. And we sold them. And so that was the beginning of, the change from not every school has money to hire music lady to come in and talk about singing and dancing and how that helps our brain remember and how the beat can drive us into math and that type of thing. But schools did have a budget to bring in an author illustrator. And so that was really, I would say, my bridge between having worked primarily in preschool and early childhood settings and then getting to go to the elementary school. So that was the beginning of the change into being an illustrator.
Well, I'm so glad you told us the whole history of that first book, because I actually want to transition into the book that you sent me and my kids loved, Mighty Wings. Yes.
So here we go. We've got all four of them here. There was You're Wonderful. The next one, my niece went to Africa, and I had already written a song called Tall Giraffe. So she took all the photographs. So they're genuine giraffes in Africa that are then quilted digitally amongst African batiks and African fabrics. And then I know you asked me a different question.
No, that's okay.
There. I promise. So Red, White, and Blue, the third one, I wrote immediately in the aftermath of September 11th. And so there's a whole long story, obviously, behind that. And just this last week, it was used across the country for Veterans Day. and then it'll be used again in the spring for Memorial Day. It gets used as kind of, we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we sing red, white, and blue. But I have the Mighty Wings. This is a project, I guess you call it my passion project since COVID. So this is only 3.5 years old. Again, I was reflecting on that. A person can learn a lot in 3.5 years, 3.5 years. And so COVID, my daughter literally brought me some caterpillars, monarch caterpillars. And she, in her trying to stay sane in that time of aloneness, had gotten into gardening and planting milkweed for monarch butterflies. And we've got to have milkweed. And then she brought me some caterpillars to Wisconsin and said, you're going to love watching this transformation, Mom. And, I'm like, I don't know that I want bugs in the kitchen. And from there, though, I already had, it's here somewhere, Debbie Clement. All right, well, I'll put on my happy crown and maybe it'll turn up in a second. So here's I'm known for my props. Okay. So I had a little bitty caterpillar puppet. Before I had the caterpillars, I literally owned this. Now I had to paint on the white stripes to make him scientifically accurate. but back in that day when we were home in our own homes and kids couldn't go to preschool, a teacher in Texas asked me if I would sing some songs that she could tune into and she could direct her parents and families to. So I learned how to do Facebook Live. And I had this caterpillar puppet and I just started saying, see the caterpillar crawl along. I wish I had a caterpillar song. Well, then again, to stay scientifically accurate. Now, this is a little bit exaggerated, but it grows. Okay. It grows. And so I have a big caterpillar for a birth, and he crawls in and eats for 10 to 14 days. Then he hangs upside down like the letter J. And here's my favorite part. When I get to be with the kids directly, he wiggles into his last skin, a green chrysalis. And then he has to hang there for 10 to 14 days. And then, hold on for the big ending, people. Drum roll, please. He's in the chrysalis, which then you can see right through. And he then emerges. This is a male caterpillar, by the way, because it turns into the male monarch. And the big ending, he flies down to Mexico.
It's such a fun book, Debbie. And the pictures are vibrant, and actually you learn a lot. Now my whole family knows the difference between a male and female monarch. It was really fun. And then my son, I think I already told you this, but my son was repeating the words like 2 days later. They were just running through his head as he was rapping. We watched your rap about the monarch too, and it really did stick. So I'd really commend you on just a fabulous product and a great book, and how fun it is, I bet, to perform that.
Thank you so much, because parent feedback, besides teacher feedback and principal feedback, is what it's all about. So every monarch in the book are monarchs that either I raised from an egg or my daughter Sarah did, and took a photograph. And then old school, I took the photograph and had it develop and then cut it out. And like I say, old days from college, rubber cemented it over top of other types of photographs. And then, because I'm always thinking of the child who does not yet read, or the child, who's just going to listen for a long time, in each 2-page spread of my illustrations, there are at least 5 elements for the kids to find. So there's always puzzle pieces on every illustration. This is a mixed media. That's what I like to call it. So it's photographs and Debbie's watercolor and drawings and then real things that I super glued on top of those watercolors. So you always look for a puzzle piece, because we're all part of the puzzle of keeping this insect from going extinct, in our lifetime, which could happen. I mean, there's some good news that I've been hearing just literally of late. There's a lot of scary news too. But to me, Eric, this is no kidding what one person can do, right? What one person could do for climate change.
Sure.
And that's why I'm so excited to talk to a room full of teachers who can all go back and part of real, no kidding science, plant milkweed and then have, no kidding, monarchs come to your school and leave their eggs and
Mm-hmm.
watch the cycle and have them fly away. And yes, I have had the great good fortune earlier this year to go to Mexico and to experience the migration, firsthand. And I'm going back in March of 2024, and I'll be the hostess for the tour. So it's the guides that know their way, but I'm the been there, done that, have the t-shirt, ask Debbie the questions, is there toilet paper? How many, what kind of shoes do I need for hiking up the mountain?
Mm-hmm.
How much experience do you have to have on a horse, to feel safe? And so right now we have 4 teachers going and another monarch picture book illustrator.
Oh, fun.
She wrote the book. I stand corrected. So we have 2 authors, and we still have room on our van. It's truly. Then you just get so excited, and you have to go home and you have to plant more milkweed, and you need more native plants in your garden because it makes sense that what we do in our own space, that we can be part of the National Park Association by having a garden full of native flowers. So yes, I'm very excited about where this has taken me and the invitations that have come as a result. Now I'm speaking to adult gardening
Mm-hmm.
societies, and the grandmas are buying their book for their grandchild, but
How
people who
fun.
have gardened forever, now are recognizing that rose bushes don't, provide a whole lot to the pollinators. And if we lose our bees, if we lose our monarchs, it's to me, it's the canary in the coal mine,
Mm-hmm.
right? Every time we lose one of these species, and certainly bees and or our butterflies, it's a dire warning. And right now, there's still time. There's still time, and so that's why I'm so excited that our book. I was able to submit it to a doctor actually in Wisconsin. That's not far from Minnesota,
Mm-hmm.
and she has her doctorate and is the country's premier author on saving the species. And
Wow.
I said, this is intended really for 5, 6, 7, 8 year olds, but I want every phrase, especially of that first wrap where we're talking about how long this happens and what to expect
Mm-hmm.
next and so forth. The real teaching curriculum piece of a picture book, if you will. I want it to be accurate. And she only had to change one phrase. I had whimsically written, he weaves a greenhouse called a chrysalis. And she said, Debbie, there's no weaving and there are no houses. And okay. So she said it needed to be, he wiggles out of his last skin into a green chrysalis. And so I was able to get that
I changed
to
it.
hit the beat a little bit, and have her, no kidding, good housekeeping scientist
Yeah.
seal of approval. And that means a lot to me. And then she works with Journey North, and they donated the use of photographs, professional photographs in Mexico of the migration. When you think of 1,000 monarchs hanging on one oyamel fir tree branch, they donated 6 pictures for the use to
Wow.
be printed in the picture book. And then last March, I met her. I met the photographer in Mexico in the village of Anguangueo, and she invited me to her home. And we had been email friends for about 18 months at that point, but we got to meet each other in person. And
How
that's the
fun.
power of a book, right? Is one of my books can go to a place where I'm never going to be. And the song and that infectious hook, brings to some children, right? Music is their intelligence. Let's face it. And I can see that in a group of 3 and 4 and 5 year olds. And some song of mine, The Tall Giraffe, has, no kidding, we were recording it, and at the same day, there were three gentlemen from Africa with their drums. And Dan, the owner of the studio, said, Debbie, hold on, you're not going to believe this. Right across the hall, I've got some African men who are drumming. And so he literally went over and said, hey, guys, bring your drums. Come over here on this side.
Hmm.
She needs to. And so the undergirding for Tall Giraffe are literally African drummers. And it's just an infectious kind of a beat. I can't describe it. But that's when I'm out with the children, there'll be a kid, whose body has got the beat and they're rocking and they're
Mm-hmm.
responding. And when I was an art teacher, so that was so many years ago, I got to be the art teacher in an elementary school for a couple of years. And that was also ironically in Wisconsin. But anyhow, I would have a kindergarten child, I can remember him to this day, who could draw just incredibly involved and so much more mature than a kindergarten student. And I would go back and say to his teacher, this kid is so gifted and talented. And she was like, he's walking on the ceiling, he's bouncing around in here. I showed her the picture first and didn't tell her who the student was, and it was one of those light bulb moments where she's teaching to the test and not the child. And for me to point out, really his gift was in the visual arts, and that was so easily identified by me. But so to be able to incorporate each of those pieces when I come off to talk about staff development, and how do we do that? How do we do that through choreography? How can we get them up and moving and build in the patterns and so forth is exciting.
Well, as you can see, I mean, I am enthralled with everything that you're talking about today, and the movement and the music, and just putting it all together would be such an experience, not only for those kids that come to watch you, but even for the adults. And I think, if we come back to this idea that you're not just an author, you're not just a musician, but you really know how to talk and speak with people. And to get you up on front in a stage would be remarkable. What would that look like if you were to come in and work with a school or a district? What could that look like, Debbie?
It literally looks like what they tell me. Oftentimes, I'm a one-day wonder, right? And I come in for back to school or some kind of middle of the year pep talk, and I'm usually the early childhood, piece, meaning maybe kindergarten,
Mm-hmm.
and now more and more schools have the preschool within the school district, or sometimes it's a collaborative community-wide where they're working with Head Start teachers. I have a 6 hours with Debbie, and we get to have a lunchtime too. There now, I was going to say something. My mom made me promise a million years ago at the beginning of time. I used to do like a 4 hours of why we do this, and everybody singing and dancing and learning the sign language and all that. And then we did a make it, take it. And I would bring a car full of felt and pom-poms and glue
Mm-hmm.
guns, and I would do all the shopping for that. And she's like, don't tell anybody you ever do that again, because that was a lot of work. But I have done that at the national level. Frog Street, the curriculum company, they did all the shopping. They just said, okay, so we're going to have 800 people in 3 different sessions, and tell us what you need so that everybody can make a tall
How
giraffe
fun.
puppet, and everybody's going to make a quilt square in reflection to You're Wonderful, and we need something patriotic. And so, I mean, I guess if somebody does the shopping, we could do that. But I have done, like, I had a whole week one time outside of Austin, Texas, where I did the staff development day on Monday with the early childhood part of the school district. And then I got to spend 4 days making school visits. I mean, how cool
How
was that?
fun.
Um, I've had I had a district outside of Washington, D.C. that wrote a grant for early literacy and used some of their title money. And that was my big day to be Oprah Winfrey. And each of 178 kindergarten students received the book Tall Giraffe. And so
How
I'd be like,
fun.
and you get a book, and you get a book, and you get a book. I have all my Tall Giraffe gear here too. So I have a whole costume that comes out, and now that we've gone this far, I have to show you. Oh, over here, I have wings for the Mighty Wings
Uh-huh.
butterfly. So Target had these in their Halloween department this year. and a friend of mine was at Target. It's good to have good friends. And she bought me 4 pair. And so this fall, as I have been out doing my author visits for Mighty Wings, 3 lucky kids get to come up and wear wings with me. But here's Tall Giraffe. I've got to take off that hat. And my costume for this is just super simple. It's a little piece of fabric, right? And it goes over my head. And then I look like a tall giraffe if you're in kindergarten. And then the big ending, because I'm big on big endings. Our research tells us, right? We have to grab their attention, and then we've got to have a big ending. And so my big ending is the verse that is happy lappy, tongue so slappy. And so in sign language, it's happy lappy, tongue so slappy. And we know that when we incorporate sign language, right, that's the only language that uses both hemispheres of the brain. And so you're using your fine motor and your gross motor and your language parts of your brain. So I always tell the teachers, you're getting more bang for your brain buck every time you just incorporate some simple sign language. Everybody sit down. It's getting more of the brain involved. And for our kids that have any kind of language disorder or processing, whether or not it's autism or any, there's kids that like visual, right? And so it's your face that lights up. But when you start using some sign language and just the simplest signs, you've got more response from your classroom. And behaviorally, right? If they can understand what your expectation is, right, that moves the needle just one step closer to where you want them to be.
Well, I'm going to switch this into a kind of a fun question right now, because I'm dying to know, as a musician, if you could have a jam session with any famous musician, living or deceased, who would you pick, Debbie?
Oh, wow. Boy, you didn't prepare me for that.
I didn't.
Golly, how about like Carole King? That's a powerhouse. I was just this morning reading the difference that Bette Midler made in the profession of Pink, and I was like, oh, you know who I picked? Oh, can I have a do-over? Edit. Okay, I want Dolly Parton. Oh my gosh, Dr. Eric, no kidding. I have sent her a copy of Mighty Wings. And my daughter, Sarah, who instigated the whole thing, actually was behind the scenes at the Country Music Awards this year, where Dolly was the co-host.
Yeah.
But she was not, she was prohibited from approaching Dolly in any way. And she did not get her address, but a friend of ours in Tennessee lives close enough to know Dolly's address. And so I have sent her a book, and she has not responded yet. But the reason that Dolly Parton would be the most brilliant, connection for me, butterflies are literally in her logo. Literally everything that she signs, she writes out Dolly, and there's a little butterfly. And she has, of course, a wonderful butterfly song, but her contribution to early literacy through
amazing.
The Imaginarium Librarian, giving every child a book once a month from their birth to the age of 5. I mean, see the Bette Midler in helping people, and Dolly and her contribution to what she does as a person. Yeah, if you can make that connection, can you make that happen?
We'll see what we can do, Debbie. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Well, we're kind of coming to the end here, and I want to give you one last chance. For the listeners, do you have a last call to action statement that you want to leave them with?
Well, choose me. A call to action. I really love to do what a school district wants to happen, and if that's a one-day author visit, to connect. And what is so powerful is when we can get the art teacher and the music teacher on board ahead of time, right? And do an interdisciplinary kind of here comes the author. One time I walked into a gymnasium, a traditional sized gymnasium. Okay. This was a kindergarten building, and they had 336 kindergarten kids. The whole district, all the kindergarten kids were in this old time high school that had the old time wooden floors in the real life, no kidding, gymnasium. But the art teacher had each student make a quilt square in response to You're Wonderful. And 330 quilt squares literally went from one basketball hoop to the other. And the music teacher had already worked with the kids to learn, the songs that I was going to present. That is just such a powerful. And
Oh,
then that
fun.
night we had a family component. So the families were invited back. So the kids got to meet me in the daytime. We learned some more sign language together. And then we performed that evening. I mean, I've been at this for 27 years. So for anybody to kind of top some of these penultimate experiences, getting to work in a district for a week, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, getting to have the arts and music people coordinate with a family component. I'm all about that. I'm all about that. A person once time along the line, and I don't even know who to give credit for, but she looked at me very earnestly and said, Debbie, you're simply changing the world one song at a time.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, wow, how about if we put that on my headstone? That could be my legacy. I
Mm-hmm.
think now we look at the words "You're wonderful," which I thought of as affirmation back, last century. That's social emotional learning, right?
Yes,
To
it
to
is.
give students the words to say to each other. I see that you're doing something positive, and I appreciate that. So yes, I'm ready. I'm
There you go.
available. We have airplanes that fly from either Orlando or up there. Usually I have to fly out of Milwaukee to get on Southwest because I have to bring a
Mm-hmm.
lot of luggage. But if I'm coming to Minnesota, I guess I could maybe drive. That
You
would
could
be
maybe
fun.
even drive. You never
I
know.
could maybe even drive.
Well, I want to thank you, Debbie, number one, for sharing your incredible journey with us. Your dedication to education, the arts is really nothing short of inspiring. And to our listeners, I want to make sure that you can explore Debbie's musical world, right? And her
Right.
captivating picture books, especially, I mean, my favorite, Mighty Wings. These are books, are not just stories, they're getaways to knowledge and wonder. And remember, even small actions count, right? Just like
Right.
saving one monarch butterfly can contribute to the greater
Right.
good of the planet. And I saw today is World Kindness Day,
World Kindness
right?
Day,
It is
right?
World Kindness Day. So what a great time to talk about this. That fits in right with how we kind of try to end all of our TalentED episodes. Um, and with that, don't forget to stay PKS, which is positive, kind, and supportive. I'm Dr. Eric Skanson. Until next time, continue to nurture your talents and be a beacon of knowledge. Stay PKS. A heartfelt thank you to our incredible guest, Debbie, for gracing us with her talents and insights today. And thank you, everybody. Call School Pro if you want to hook up with Debbie. We'd be happy to get you connected. Thanks, everybody.